Open your phone right now, and you are guaranteed to see them. Rapid-fire videos promising to reveal the 15 secret investments wealthy people make that you've probably never heard of. You see heavy steel vaults, fractional shares of abstract modern art, and private gold bullion. Most people don't know this, but the internet is absolutely saturated with these viral luxury wealth symbols, and it's all designed to trigger your financial FOMO. The core claim these financial gurus push is incredibly seductive. They tell you that standard stocks and index funds are just for the middle class, the average person. They insist that true, untouchable generational wealth is built exclusively on a hidden portfolio of alternative assets, things completely locked away from the public eye. But here's the secret the gurus completely leave out. Take a look at this split-screen visualization. On the left, you see the viral illusion, a smooth, neon trend line of infinite compounding growth that social media promises you. But on the right side, we see the harsh, data-driven reality. This rigid stepladder chart tracks the actual systemic barriers to entry: strict net worth requirements, legal accreditation, and massive minimum buy-ins that stop most investors in their tracks. Notice how that smooth neon line is hanging a brick wall right here at the accreditation and minimum buy-in steps. To even get a seat at the table for these deals, the government often requires you to prove you already have $1 million in net worth or a consistent $200,000 annual income. These restrictive steps represent the massive operational friction of elite assets, acting as rigid gatekeepers against your capital. Chasing these elite investments without understanding the heavy friction involved traps and paralyzes your capital in complex systems you cannot easily escape. It's an emotional trigger designed to make you feel like you're missing out, but the reality is often a cage for your cash. Think about your own brokerage setup right now. It is likely a single screen on your phone where you can buy or sell thousands of shares instantly for zero commission. Now, compare that to a billionaire's family office, but on the exact opposite side, you have operational friction, burdened by heavy iron weights labeled fees, time, and illiquidity. Watch the violent reality of illiquidity. The heavy iron weights of operational friction drop forcefully, entirely crushing the theoretical yield. Illiquidity is the most dangerous hidden risk in finance. It means your money is completely locked up, physically out of your reach, sometimes for an entire decade. If you have a personal emergency next year, that elite investment might as well be on the moon. Our mission today is to strip away the glossy prestige of these alternative assets. We are going to ignore the luxury marketing and look strictly at the raw data to see if the required effort, the fees, and the locked-up capital are actually mathematically justified for your specific portfolio. For most investors, the immense weight of operational friction acts as a significant drag on the promised yield premium. This investigation focuses on whether that friction-adjusted return can actually compete with the simplicity of the broad market, or if the elite label is just a way to charge higher fees for a worse outcome. Let's evaluate the first major category of elite assets: physical collectibles. This encompasses fine art, luxury Swiss watches, and rare vintage wine. These are the assets that look best on Instagram, radiating old money prestige. But as we're about to see, looking wealthy and being wealthy are two very different mathematical equations. Acquiring these requires a massive upfront capital input. You cannot buy a blue-chip canvas or a verified vintage timepiece with a few $100s. You are wiring tens or hundreds of thousands of dollars just to purchase a single legitimate investment-grade physical asset. Look at this input versus friction scorecard. The capital input required dial points straight too high. But the real issue is the third dial. Operational friction sits at a massive 8 out of 10. That is because of the hidden, ongoing cash inputs required just to maintain the asset's baseline value. You are paying for specialized climate-controlled storage facilities because a single degree of humidity fluctuation can devalue a painting by 30%, plus annual appraisals and high-premium insurance policies every single month. Now, look at the line graph beneath the dials. The primary mathematical benefit of this category is uncorrelated diversification. The physical asset's value moves independently of the jagged stock market line. When the S&P 500 drops 20%, A rare bottle of 1945 Romanée Conti doesn't necessarily care. It acts as a historical, tangible hedge against traditional inflation. But that isolation comes with a catastrophic trade-off: extreme illiquidity. If you suffer a sudden business collapse, you cannot sell a fraction of a painting. You cannot liquidate a single geeker of your luxury watch to cover your mortgage. You either own the whole asset or you have no cash. And when it is finally time to liquidate and access your profit, the friction gets worse. You have to go through an auction house or a luxury broker. These middlemen will instantly eat 15% to 25% of your final gross profit in commissions and seller fees, completely gutting your long-term returns. When you run the numbers, the reality is stark. Between the 2% annual storage and insurance costs and the 20% hit upon sale, an art piece must appreciate by nearly 50% over a decade just to break even with a boring 7% market return. The social prestige of owning physical collectibles is often bought at the direct expense of mathematical growth. This brings us to the second category of elite wealth building: private equity and angel investing. As this heavy, industrial bank vault door slowly swings shut and locks, consider that this is exactly what happens to your cash. It's gone from your world for a long, long time. The legal and financial inputs required here are incredibly strict. First, you have to prove your status as an accredited investor by handing over tax returns. Then, you are required to wire massive, non-refundable lump sums, routinely ranging from $50,000 to $250,000 per deal. This isn't money you invest through an app. It's a legal commitment. Here is the scorecard for private equity. Notice how the operational friction dial hits a severe 9 out of 10. That score reflects the extreme lockup period. Your capital is trapped behind that vault door, completely out of reach, for a minimum of 7 to 10 years while the private company operates. You are a passenger with no exit ramp. So why do people do it? Look at the expected ROI dial as it splits. The needle slamming to the maximum represents the allure of the outcome, the chance for asymmetrical 10x to 100x returns if the private company successfully exits, gets acquired, or goes public. This is the get-rich dream that sells the asset class. But look at that second needle dropping completely to zero. 9 out of 10 startups fail, meaning your initial huge wire transfer frequently evaporates into thin air. You're not just taking a risk, you're often buying a lottery ticket with a $100,000 entry fee. And if you think you can just wait it out, you need to understand the dangerous mechanism known as capital calls. In many private equity structures, fund managers legally require investors to inject additional cash into the fund on incredibly short notice. If you don't have the liquid cash ready, you face severe penalties or massive dilution of your shares. A surprise capital call combined with a high failure rate across your portfolio can quickly bankrupt an unprepared investor who was merely chasing elite status. By the way, if you are finding this breakdown helpful, take 1 second to hit the like button and subscribe right now so we can keep making data-driven content like this. Now let's explore the third category of elite investing: syndicated real estate and commercial farmland. This is where wealth groups pool money to buy massive apartment complexes or thousands of acres of agricultural land. It sounds stable, and it sounds real. The primary input required from you is total submission. You hand over your capital and completely surrender all operational control to a third-party sponsor, known as the general partner. You have zero say in who is hired, when renovations happen, or how the property is managed. Check out the scorecard for syndications. The dials for capital input and expected ROI sit at a comfortable medium, and operational friction starts relatively low at a 4 out of 10. This perfectly illustrates the passive income dream: generating tax-advantaged yield without ever having to manage tenants, fix leaky roofs, or harvest a single crop. But watch what happens when we introduce the critical hidden trade-off. An overlay of a sponsor competence meter appears. Because you have no control, the success of your investment relies entirely on the competence and integrity of that sponsor. If their competence drops into the red zone, your operational friction instantly spikes to the maximum. This is the worst-case scenario. If the management team fails to execute their business plan or over-leverages the debt, your capital is now trapped inside a rapidly depreciating physical asset that you legally cannot step in to fix. you are watching your money burn from the sidelines. And you cannot simply escape. This is the ultimate liquidity trap. Unlike a publicly traded stock where you can dump your shares on the open market in milliseconds, there is virtually no secondary market to quickly sell off illiquid shares of a failing private real estate syndication. You're stuck until the sponsor decides to sell. While syndications offer the most passive operational structure on paper, surrendering total control means you are ultimately betting entirely on the operator's business skill, not just the underlying real estate. If the operator fails, the elite investment becomes a massive liability. Now that we have fully evaluated the brutal friction of the assets themselves, we need to map out investor strategy. Different wealth profiles must navigate these specific friction-heavy tools in entirely different ways. Not everyone should play in this sandbox. This matrix breaks down the 3 core profiles. The first highlighted column is the novice. This represents beginners with limited capital who are drawn in by the viral hype. The checklist reads, Action: avoid completely. Reason: high fractional app fees completely destroy your minimal yields. Novices must absolutely avoid fractional elite investing apps. When you pay a 1% or 2% annual platform fee to own a tiny fraction of a Rolex or a painting, you are starting with a massive deficit. This friction delays the crucial compounding power of building a boring foundational index fund portfolio. You need liquid growth first, not fractional prestige. The second column populates for the pragmatic optimizer. This represents intermediate to advanced investors with an already established traditional portfolio. The checklist action here is proceed with caution. The strategy: limit these alternative assets strictly to 5% or 10% of your total net worth. Optimizer should only utilize alternative assets for strict, uncorrelated diversification. You use them as a defensive shield against stock market crashes, never as the primary engine for your core portfolio growth. They are the salt in the recipe, not the main course. Finally, the third column populates for the status seeker. This represents individuals drawn heavily to the prestige, history, and lifestyle of physical wealth. The checklist action is blunt: classify as expense. The reason is that tangible enjoyment changes the financial math in a way that most people ignore. If the goal is to drink the wine or wear the watch, the asset is no longer a financial instrument, it is a consumption item. Once you account for the utility of personal use, the expected financial return often drops to 0 or turns negative after storage and insurance fees are paid. If a $100,000 watch costs $1,500 a year to fully insure and service, you are starting every year with a 1.5% deficit before the market even moves. Budgeted as a luxury, not a retirement plan. These elite investments are not magic moneymakers. They are highly specific, complex financial tools that trade away your liquidity and simplicity in exchange for niche tax benefits or uncorrelated yields. Look at this cinematic time-lapse of a city skyline steadily expanding into the clouds. Contrast the immense, headache-inducing operational friction of the billionaire portfolio with the completely frictionless, automated compounding of a standard index fund. One requires lawyers, appraisals, and decade-long lockups. The other works silently in the background for you. The data-driven reality is clear. For 95% of the population, standard broad market investing mathematically outperforms the hidden traps, the illiquidity, and the exorbitant fees of the elite asset class. Simplicity is the ultimate competitive advantage for the individual investor. I want to hear from you. Drop a comment below right now and tell me, which secret elite investment did you previously believe was a guaranteed path to wealth before you understood the massive operational friction behind it? If you appreciate objective, ruthless, data-driven breakdowns of financial myths without the viral fluff, make sure to subscribe to Insight Anchor right now and hit the notification bell. We are here to help you build real wealth, not just chase the appearance of it. Generational wealth is rarely built on secret assets. It is built on boring, consistent execution. Stay disciplined, keep your friction low, and I will see you in the next video.